I did the Metamorphosis by Franz Kafka for my independent novel. A quick summary. So one day, Gregor Samsa wakes up and finds that he has transformed into this hideous insect, and he'd like to think that he's dreaming, but he's actually awake, and very much so. So the metamorphosis is centered around Gregor's evolution as a character, as well as his family's changes that they go through as he stays in this monstrous state. Here's a little bit of information about Franz Kafka. Franz Kafka was a German author who suffered from depression and anxiety, often led on by his job, which are obvious in his characterization of Gregor Samsa in the Metamorphosis. He also felt alienated as a Jew in his lifetime, which creates a theme of desolation in his works, and also some of Jewish's cultural differences are present in his book, like in the Metamorphosis. Later in life, he had tuberculosis, which is thought to be what plagued some of his characters, and he had a difficult time getting along with his parents, which was mostly reflected in his novel, The Metamorphosis. So here's my fosterization of Gregor Samsa. So the family acts as literary vampires, as you can see by this quote. His parents rely on Gregor to be the primary moneymaker in the household, and so eventually, after he realizes he can't go back to work because of the state he is in, his father picks up a job and then begins to feel as though he is more dominant than Gregor, as you can see by this quote. However, his mother, instead of working for a while, takes apart his room, which is symbolic of his loss of humanity, as seen in this quote. His sister intended to go to music school before Gregor became the vermin, and so now she must cook and clean because he does not work, and she begins to wither away because she can only focus on her work, and this is also shows a lack of communion, which shows the tension within the family. I found that Gregor was a Christ figure. He sacrifices himself for the family, where he is condemned to serve at a firm where the smallest infraction was seized upon with the gravest suspicion. He was a carpenter, he was young, and there's an apple scene that I really can't give too much about because it's kind of a spoiler alert. And there's constant rain, which is symbolic of Gregor's growing sense of hopelessness and disparity. There's also injury, which Foster says is very important, and Gregor loses his vision, which shows his loss of hope. For the literary scale, I would give this book about a 6 or a 7. It has a lot of themes that aren't really transparent, and it has an allegorical message. The Christ figure and vampires may be easier for someone who's trained in lit to find. For readability, I thought this book was about a 6. Though the language isn't really that challenging, this book should be read for a higher meaning and definitely deserves a spot on the AP Lit reading list. I thought the main literary element present was characterization. The story tracks from when Gregor initially wakes up as the vermin to the very end. It also kind of tactfully shows the changes that all of his family goes through, as is seen in my fosterization, but I really can't give away too much because otherwise I will tell you the ending. I would definitely recommend this book to my fellow students. I think that the concept is really original and interesting, and I read it on both an AP level and on a non-AP level, and I think it's interesting both ways, and I would highly recommend it, and I give it 4.5 out of 5 stars.